Like I said, I'll take responsibility from that. Like our structure sort of kept him out of it a little bit. He had a licence in the weeks previous that he could just come up and if he felt like he needed to get in the game, he could come up and jump into a stoppage, but our structure didn't allow that today.
Uze unbolted yesterday in Richmond's disappointing loss. Fair enough reaction, Kane?
Yeah, I just wonder whether coaches are taking too much responsibility. Lordo, you've coached and I haven't. I know it's at a lower level, but 3 touches for a player as talented as Shea Bolton, should more of the responsibility been on him to get himself in the game?
I looked at it as, say, for example, what Jeremy Cameron gets to do at the moment. Jeremy can go whenever he wants, but it just sounded to me that that's the licence Bolton's had, but he didn't give him that licence on the weekend as to the responsibility Uze took there.
Yeah, so Dustin Martin was a player that I was watching closely yesterday, as you always do with Dustin. Firstly, just with the way that they are at and situated with the rebuild at the Tigers, I'd love to see some younger players go through there. We don't need to see, it's good to see Sonsi in there, but we don't need to see Marlon Pickett attending centre bounces. Where are the next young crop coming through? We've spoken about that at length. And Dustin Martin's role was interesting. The first time I've sort of seen him come up the ground and look for cheap handballs in the back half. We have not associated Dustin Martin with that at all. His damage has always been front of centre, and I thought he was ineffective yesterday. Look, he's working hard and he's really looked engaged and he's demanding the football, but Dusty getting the ball here, looking for cheapies around the back. I don't need to see that and spraying the footy. So I think the role that he played last year inside forward 50, getting kick-ins. We've never seen that from Dustin Martin, getting disposals in the back half. Keep him inside 50, he does maximum damage in the front half, and that's where he's going to be most useful for the Tigers. Give this role to younger players, demanding the footy there and then spraying it again. So I thought it was a bit of a warning sign. I'd love to see him stay inside forward 50 or in the front half.
What concerned me for Richmond is I feel for young Miller, Ben Miller, who's playing for Richmond in defence. Josh Tracy just sort of did a number on him and just saw his positioning in a lot of these where he's just so far off the pace, and had me thinking around, Liam Baker. Say you don't want to overpay for Liam Baker. I feel that they could potentially replace him, and depending on how much money Dustin Martin wants, I think they have to look at their big man stocks. They'll get Noah Bolter back at some point, who can hold down. But look at Miller down the bottom part of the screen, continually lost. So I think, we look at Ben Mackay this time last year. So I'd have my hooks, Caravel's Richmond, into key position stocks to see, because I think Tom Lynch is getting older, Nankervis is getting older,
Grimes.
and then down the other end, Grimes. So I think their key position is where they need to look at.
No, that's a good point. And Miller was fine for that hit on Amos that he was criticised by Justin Longmuir for. Grimes was fine, Broad was fine. I think there's some real frustration showing at the moment in the Richmond defence.
Don't often see this from St Kilda. Ross Lyon, in essence, overruling the Medicos on his young star Darcy Wilson. Let's take a look.
And I was like, mate, if he can stay on and he's fine to stay on, let him stay on, because it makes a statement. Yeah. Because we're a club that wants to build success and doesn't want to get beaten on culture. So that's the culture we want. Docs would like to get them off, but if they can stay on, they stay on. Let's not be a namby-pamby and wrap him up and get him off when the kid deserved to stay on.
So what's the coach's call? Maybe Ken Hinkley was right to apologise to Connor Rosie. I always thought it was a Doc's fault.
Well, it's a great insight, and that's coaching. I love that insight.
He's politically incorrect, isn't he? I mean, he's criticised, he's spoken about other clubs this year, he's spoken about Essendon, Collingwood. Now he's had a crack at it's good culture to stay on the ground.
Crack. If he was fine to stay on, he was enormous, and he went to full forward, and it was a good learning curve for him. Just on Max King, one of the players that we forecast last week needed a big game and needs to progress in his career. Nathan Buckley is pretty considered with his criticism. He wasn't this morning on Max.
Max King is unreliable at the moment, and his competitiveness is inconsistent. He had the drop on core 3 or 4 times and then could not win that contest, refused to go to highest point and wanted to engage with the body. So he's out of form and he's a liability to St Kilda at the moment. Max King needs to find something to take the next step in his career before he puts himself in selection trouble.
Pretty fair. He has responded in the past to strong criticism, Max, before, but as I said last week, if they want to get to where they're going, I think that criticism from Brux was pretty fair.
Yeah, he looks a frustrated player, and he sort of doesn't look happy out on the ground, Max King, so he's got to change that this time around. Another player not in the best form is Tom Hawkins. His coach, Chris Scott, spoke about him post-match.
At the risk of sounding defensive, I'm not sure how many goals Hawks kicked in his career, because I just don't really follow those numbers. But what I'm certain of is that he's given away a whole lot more than any other key forward in the history of the game. So to measure his influence on our team by goals alone. I think it's a sexy stat.
He's got the runs on the board, so everyone's just going to support Tom Hawkins, but the concerns are how many disposals May had, how many Hawkins had, and the damage that May was doing. So you watch Tommy Hawkins, he's sort of sagging off the contest a little bit here, and May's leaving him. So, if you're not... His numbers have dropped in terms of score involvements. His goals have obviously dropped to nothing. So, he'd want a big one this week. I don't care what they say. If you're a gun forward like Tom Hawkins, you haven't kicked the goal for over a month, you are stressing out big time, because no one turns up and says, I'm giving off the odd goal, I'm running. Because
anyone can play that role.
Anyone can do that role, exactly. So he's better than that.